Good morning, and welcome to this Tech Fair presentation of measuring student learning in critical thinking skills. We're going to look at various ways in which we can measure the impact that we have on increasing student critical thinking skills. In today's global economy, we need to come up with ways to increase the way in which students think creatively, not just rote memorization of times tables. While that is important, we need to work on ways to get students to take information from various disciplines and put it together to solve a problem, a real-world problem. In other words, we need to make the teaching that we're doing more relevant to the problems and situations that students are going to face in real world. They are probably not going to have a word problem or a multiple choice question. They're going to have real-world situations that they're going to have to create an answer for, create a solution for. And these are the higher order thinking skills in Bloomberg's taxonomy. These are the analysis, the synthesis, creativity, the part of the brain that is not rote memorization. And we need to be able to assess our impact on increasing our students' ability to utilize critical thinking skills. Historically, critical thinking skills have been defined as higher order cognitive activities. And the key thing in the higher order is that it's not just regurgitating what you've heard in the past, it's doing something with that, doing something with either the remembered facts or the observed facts. Those things that are presented to you, those things that are observed, and those things that are discovered, and then manipulating them to form a solution to the problem at hand. And in that solution would be considered an artifact. That's the representation of the solution that you put together to resolve this issue, whatever that issue might happen to be. Going back to Bloom's taxonomy, I see the screen is taking a little while to paint. Traditionally, we have been very good at providing the lower order skills, the knowledge comprehension, and to an extent application. We've shown folks how to locate, name, remember, memorize. But what we now need to evolve into the higher order things, the analysis, the synthesis, the evaluation. And then how do we measure our students' increasing ability to make use of these higher order skills? That's what this webinar is about. We're going to look at ways in which we can analyze and review our impact on increasing students' higher order thinking skills. Now, basically what this little cartoon is about, critical thinking in the information age. I think it was Albert Einstein that once said, why bother to remember something if it's written down somewhere? All you have to do is remember where it's written. And that's what it is here in the information age. Many facts are already available in a wide variety of sources. The key thing is being able to get that information quickly and efficiently, retrieve the information, and use it to compile a solution to a problem at hand. So it's not so much memorizing everything, it's knowing how to retrieve information, how to data mine. And with the computers, computer age, we can do that from any number of devices, including our smartphones and our tablets. So we're mobile. We're not confined to a library. We're not confined to a desk. We're not confined to an office. We can obtain information and create solutions on the go, wherever we happen to be. Wherever the problem happens to arise, we can come up with a solution if we know where to find the components that are needed to construct the answer. The American Philosophical Association did a Delphi consensus study, and what they define critical thinking is the process of purposeful self-regulatory judgment. This process gives reason, consideration to evidence, context, conceptualizations, methods, and criteria. Basically, this is how you think, or this is how you make a decision, or this is how our students will be making decisions. As effectively as they utilize critical thinking skills will dictate how good a decision they make. If they have poor critical thinking skills, they will end up making poor life decisions. So that's very important that we help our students increase their critical thinking skills. California has a critical thinking skills test. It's called the CCTST, designed to permit test takers to demonstrate critical thinking skills. And it's not only designed to work in the educational environment, but also in workplace settings. And it's critical because it shows how forming reasoned judgments are important in making decisions. Multiple choice items are used. However, it's not just multiple choice items. That's like the bubble test. In order for you to come up with the correct answer, the test taker is required to obtain information from a variety of sources. Most of that information will be provided within the question. In other words, what would happen is you'd see there would be a little paragraph that sets up the situation, and from within that situation, the student is asked to answer a series of questions. See if we can't take a look at an exam. Hopefully this will work. Here are some sample. By the way, I at the conclusion of this, if you leave your email addresses, I will send you a copy of this presentation in digital format, which has the active links available so that you can actually go back to these sites as reference points. But here's some sample critical thinking skills questions. In this question, a scientific study compared two matched groups of college women. The women in both groups were presented with information about the benefits of a healthy diet and regular exercise. The women in one group were paired up with one another, encouraged to work as two-person teams to help each other stick with the recommended healthy regimen of smart eating and regular vigorous exercise. The women in the other group were encouraged to use the same recommended regimen, but they were advised to work at it individually rather than as a partner with a partner or a teammate. After 50 days, the physical health and well-being of all the women in both groups were evaluated. On average, the women in the first group with teammates showed a 25-point improvement in measures of cardiopulmonary capacity, body strength, body fat reduction, and sense of well-being. On average, the women in the other group, encouraged to work as individuals, showed a 17-point improvement in the same measures. Using statistical analysis, the researchers determined that the probability that a difference of this size occurred by chance was less than 1 in 1,000. So, the first question would be, if true, these research findings would tend to support which of the following assertions? Now, all the information needed to answer the question is, once again, contained within the scenario presented. This is not something that one would have been able to answer through memorization. You would have to look at the facts as they are presented and then make an informed decision as to which of the A, B, C, D, or E answers best answers the question, or which of these assertions is most correct. A college woman cannot achieve optimal functionality without a teammate. Well, it would be difficult to say that, because without the teammate, they still showed a 17-point improvement. Universities should require all students living on campus residence halls to participate in a health regimen of smart eating and vigorous exercise. I don't know. I mean, while it definitely shows that in this very small sample that it was beneficial, requiring it of students, that might be difficult to enforce. A healthy diet will cause one to have better mental and physical strength. Wow. You know, therein we have to look at the word cause. You know, what was this causative or was it coincidental? The research study was funded by a corporation that makes exercise apparel. Well, I don't see anywhere in there that where that was stated, so that probably is not true. A regimen of smart eating and regular exercise is related to better health. That's an assertion that we can make. Number E. So, again, based on the information contained within the question and looking at the various options, we can come up with an answer. And analyzing this, if students come up with different answers, we could ask them, well, okay, what was the thinking process that you used to come up with an answer other than the correct one? And then we can see where there's faulty reasoning and perhaps assist them and facilitate them in strengthening their reasoning skills and their critical thinking skills. So this is, again, this is just an example of some questions that we could find in critical thinking skills tests. As I said, this is part of the California skills critical thinking skills assessment test. There are a number of them. Okay. Now, in addition to desktop apps, we also have a host of mobile apps. The first two are My Thinking Skills, led by Insight. Insight, by the way, is a company that produces the California Critical Thinking Skills Assessment Test. Their products, unfortunately, are only available in the iTunes store. There are some others, Critical Thinking, Academy of Professional Excellence, Mobile Iron, and Abundant Thinking, Eyesight, Critical Thinking 3.0. These are available on the Android platform. And these we can actually use on our smartphones to do on-the-go critical thinking skills. And these could be actually, because a number of them are free, these can actually be assigned to students as part of classroom work. Some enrichment exercises where we can have students do the phone app and report back what their results are. And we could then look at how their results are compared to classmates, how their results compare to when they started the class, and we could make a determination as to what kind of impact we're having on improving the students' critical thinking skills. Let's look at information literacy. In the 21st century, information literacy is a critical component of knowledge. In other words, not only do you have to look at the question, I mean, it's not going to be a 2 times 4 or equals such and or something like that, but we actually have to look at what the whole problem is, and be able to articulate it. So we not just read it, but we need to put it in our own words and see, what is it, what is it that we're trying to ask? Oftentimes in graduate work, I worked in a graduate school at Rossier, USC Rossier School of Education. It was difficult. Sometimes incoming students were having difficulty in coming up with and creating a very clear, concise, and topical research question. Some they were overly broad and they didn't fulfill the information need. And so some of the things that we do in defining questions, we can ask questions of the professor that help disambiguate a vague research assignment, conducting effective preliminary information searches to help frame a research statement. Access. How do we grab the information that we're looking for? Basically, we're going to find data. Data is material that hasn't been sorted and grouped and put into a useful or usable format. Once we put it into a usable format, basically once we give it context, then it becomes information. And information we can use in resolving issues. Let me give you an example of a critical thinking assessment in which we are accessing information. This might be a little difficult to read, but this is from Educational Testing Systems. You probably are familiar with that acronym. They do many of the bubble tests, standardized tests. Well, they have critical thinking skills battery of tests, and this is one of the questions from one.
To perform this test, the test taker must develop a search strategy to locate information within a database. First, he needs to select an appropriate database, then determine what criteria will provide the most efficient search for the specific information he seeks. The more accurate the search terms, the more easily he can find those results that will let him answer the customer's query.
Now, I don't know if the audio came across. Did you hear the audio on this? Did you hear the audio on this presentation? Are you guys able to hear me? So did you hear the audio in the iSkills presentation? Good. So this is an example of a access question where students have to make several choices, and there aren't any wrong choices. There just are better choices that get more closely to the information that you're looking for than other choices. And this skills test would allow you to answer these questions and see how well the students do in accessing data. once we've accessed the data, we need to evaluate it, whether or not the information satisfies an information problem, and several things we have to determine. Authority, bias, timeliness, relevance, and other aspects of the material. In other words, just because somebody says something doesn't necessarily mean it's valid. Our students often use the internet and Google search to answer information questions or solve information problems. Well, just because it's published there on the internet, since there is no criteria for publishing, how do you know it's good? How do you know it's true? Who is this person? So what we look at is we have to look at ways in which we can determine, okay, who's speaking? Does the person have any biases? In other words, if we're looking at a sports drink and the comments about this particular, the effectiveness of the sports drink are made by the manufacturer of the sports drink, there would be some bias there. They would tend to, and we would have to, I don't say discount it, but we have to definitely take that into account when we are evaluating the truthfulness of their material. Timeliness. Things don't drop off of the internet. They move back as they get older, but you still can find things that are 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And in today's information age, something that's like 5 years old might be kind of old. Yeah, it used to be that if it was 10 years old, you didn't want to use it as a reference material. That time frame has narrowed somewhat. And then relevance. Does it specifically address the information need that you're trying to deal with? It might speak very well about the colors and the ambiance of the room, but if you're looking for something more specific, like the construction materials that are used in that room, then that may not be relevant to your information need. Some of the things that you might do, or that you might instruct students to do, is provide, like web pages or in the material that you obtain or that the student obtained. What references did they have? One of the things that when you see online journal articles, if you just do a Google search, anybody can put it out. However, you use Google Scholar, most of the items there are peer-reviewed references. And a peer-reviewed reference means that some other folks who are also experts in the field have looked at it and they have basically vetted it as being accurate. Another thing you might want to look at, or show students how to look at, is how many times that information, that article, has been cited by others. An article that's been cited 100 times by others, you can pretty well bet that it's pretty accurate. On the other hand, if an article has never been cited by anyone else, well, I would probably want to go to another source. Okay, manage. Okay, now once we've gotten all of this information, we've combined it. We've collected it. Well, now we've got to put it into some kind of a usable format and storage, because it's very easy to get information overload. And one of the ways that we have to control that is by managing the information and organizing it so that we can refer back to it later on, as well as allow others who are looking at our research refer back to it. And once again, it's not a simple yes or no, plus or minus question. It's preparing an answer to situations that one would encounter in a real-world environment. In a real-world environment, as I said, it's probably not going to be a yes or no. There's going to be instances where there are, where I want to know exactly how much it will cost to pay off this loan. Okay, yeah, that's a yes or no situation. But in many instances, there are going to be other scenarios. There are going to be other contingencies that could come into play in really formulating a final answer. And you would have to be able to have information that relates to each of those contingencies. And where would you where would somebody who is following up on your information, where would they find it? If it's not organized properly, they would really have a difficult time finding it and verifying what you said. Look at another quick little task. This again is from education testing systems.
In this case, the test taker is expected to organize information according to a classification scheme. He must delete personal emails and save only those emails that pertain to a job. Observe. Since the subject line does not always make the content of the emails clear, and in fact may even be misleading, it is necessary for him to view the contents of the email before making a decision on whether to save or delete it. As in a real world, we can perform these functions in different ways. The methods chosen will the artifact display.
Okay, so this is an example of how one would go about managing the wealth of information that one would collect when doing a data search, search for information to solve an information problem. Integrate. Now that we've gotten the information that we've looked for, we've gotten the data, we've put it into a usable format, and so it's now information. We've managed it and we've put it together into a storage and retrievable format. What we now have to do is we have to put it together, interpret, represent information, and we have to use something to synthesize, summarize, compare, and contrast information from multiple sources. Okay. These are some examples of some tasks that might include, comparing advertisements, emails, or websites from competing vendors by summarizing information into a table. The table would be the artifact that we would present as the solution to our information problem. Incorporating information from different sources to conduct a scientific experiment and report the results. Placing results from an academic or sports tournament into a spreadsheet to clarify standings and decide the need for playoffs. Look at another example on this.
In this task, the test taker must integrate information that is gathered from 3 different types of sources: a web page, the text in the body of an email, and the document attached to an email. First, he'll choose the features needed to complete the table, deciding which match the criteria stated by the manager in the task scenario. Note that he must select from a range of criteria, some of which do not match the manager's stated information needs. It's up to the test taker to pick the appropriate options. Next, he'll complete the table by determining which source meets each of the selected criteria. As is typical with many tasks, the test taker is alerted that he's about to read this part of the text and won't be able to return again to make any revisions. The completed table now provides a visual comparison he can use to complete the final step of the test, ranking the sources of information from the most to the least preferable.
Okay, so we're now looking at how we put this information together into a format that answers a question, and creating an artifact that presents our answer to the person or persons or the general public who are asking for this information problem. Create, adapt, apply, design, or construct information in digital environments. And this is the final step of this is the step that creates the art, that puts it together and gives our presentation and is our presentation of the answer to the information problems we had.
In this test, a test taker is expected to create a graph in order to display trends that will allow her to answer a research question. In creating the graph, she must first select the necessary data based on the information provided in the scenario. She'll also need to understand how best to organize the data. If she wants, she can try out different graphs before settling on a final response. This process is factored into the score. Details of specific data points will be displayed by simply mousing over the point. Interpreting the graph will now allow her to answer the question and complete the task.
So, in the process of this assessment question, the test taker would be required to produce this artifact, in this case this graph, from the information contained, again, within the question. So the question is self-contained. It has all of the information that is needed to answer the problem, although it might require the test taker to go to different sources, once again, contain or reference within the question, to formulate a final answer, and then to interpret that information that they've acquired and put it into a presentation that will demonstrate an answer to the question. Once we've created our document, now we have to communicate it. We have to put it into a format that our audience can read. We might want to create a flyer. We might want to create slides. We might want to put something into an informational kiosk. Any number of ways we might want to send it out as an email blast. Any number of ways that we might want to communicate and disseminate the information that we have gathered and the results that have come about from our information quest. Look at one more example of
this task requires the test taker to create a simple, persuasive slide to support a position. She must first determine which issues contained in an email are most relevant. Then use the slide tool to choose an appropriate layout and title for her slide. Next, she must construct a bulleted list of the key issues that best support her argument. The slide tool allows her to prioritize her list and format the final slide for maximum impact.
Okay, so that the slide presentation is going to be the communications tool that the test taker would be using to answer the question. Okay, so in summary, what we have looked at are various ways whereby we can create or utilize existing assessment tools to determine our effectiveness in increasing and enhancing our students' critical thinking learning. One of the things we might want to do is we might want to do a before and after test. In other words, give the students, in some of the examples, they have an A and a B version of the test. So you give them the A version at the beginning of the class and a B version at the end of the class. we could see the difference between the two would indicate learning that has taken place, hopefully as a direct result of the impact that we've had in our classes. So, are there any questions that you might have on the material that we presented? Once again, if you leave your email address, we'll be sure to get you a copy of the presentation, and hopefully we'll see you at any future presentation, tech fair presentation that we're given. Thank you for attending. You have a great morning.